Well. You're listening to Gloves Off with Professor Buitrón. Alright then, I may say words on point, straightforward. No jibber jabber, everybody forward. Issues, facts and solution. Get it at Gloves Off with Professor Buitrón. Alright, what other thing is a revolution? Get it on point with Professor Buitrón. Gloves Off, no nonsense issues, politics, community. A better men follow reader. Gloves Off, a revolutionary show with everything that you need to know. With Professor Buitrón. Watch ya!
The following political paid advertisements do not reflect the political opinions of the program or its associates. Any political campaign or candidate who wishes to purchase advertising can do so. Advertising is open to all on behalf of Gloves Off.
Back at you in Gloves Off. I'm Professor Buitrón, and I'm here with Dr. O'Connor, and his specialty is parent alienation. That's what we're going to be talking about. It affects many across the land, and here we go. How are we doing, Doctor? You doing good?
I'm good. It's a pleasure and honor. Thank you for your invite. Doing well overall.
And
thank you.
Thank you for standing up.
Absolutely.
And also for enlightening us about what parent alienation was on a previous podcast that we made.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I think we should explain to the folks out there. What is parent alienation?
Parental alienation is almost verbatim to its word. A parent is being alienated in the relationship with the child or children. And it can take the form, it can be very subtle, insidious, to mean it's occurring, but you don't realize it, like a plant is growing, and it's only at certain intervals you begin to see the big differences. Or it can be very overt, very obvious. And I think a good definition is when a parent is purposefully, and there may be at times inadvertently, sabotaging or interfering with their own child's relationship with the other parent. The other parent is what's described as the target parent. The parent is being targeted. And much of the information I'm talking about is really being taken from experts in the field that have been doing this and researching this a long time, namely Craig Childress is one, Richard Warshak, Amy Baker, Ludwig Lewinstein, Dr. Miller, and others. So the process can be very subtle, and it can be a pattern of subtle behaviors by a parent toward the child. And then what you begin to see is the child exhibiting behaviors gradually toward the target parent. And there can be what we would call a critical mass point that finally it becomes very obvious to the target parent that something is just not matching. And I think one of the great clues or more publicized aspects of it is that the child's behavior toward the target parent, particularly in the presence of the alienator, just doesn't match any of the target parent's behaviors. the child's behavior becomes kind of out of proportion. Their behavior or rejection of the target parent is out of proportion to anything that the target parent or the alienated parent has been doing. And so subtly, this can be, in terms of subtle interference, it can be almost like a brainwashing, and has been described as a brainwashing psychologically and emotionally of the child. And that's what makes it so difficult to detect, because all of this programming can occur in one parent's home, and the target parent will know nothing about it except by what is being said by the child. And I think a target parent is actually lucky if they begin to hear things from the child. The child is, in a way, kind of witnessing what's going on. You know, they're saying, here's what I'm hearing. But they're not going to say it like, hey, this is what mom or this is what dad is telling me about you. You know, they're gonna say things that are rejecting in nature. I don't really want to be at dad's house, or I don't really want to be at mom's house because of the way that you've been treating me thus far. And I use that terminology, thus far, because oftentimes the words that are being used don't match the age. And so you can hear young children, not even 5, not even 4, use adult phrases, and that would be a clue, because they're basically mimicking. So I think
what are some other signs of a child that a child exhibits?
I'm sorry. One would be the out of proportion behavior. A difference in behavior when the child is with the parent, the target parent, versus if the child is with both parents. You can actually see, you can detect the child's uncomfortableness. You can see issues with the child relating to loyalty. And that can be seen, I think the easiest thing or events could be at, the child's activities, where the parent is purposely keeping the child away from the other parent, which is really obvious, even to other parents at activities, or the child is paying particularly close attention to one parent versus the target parent, the alienating parent versus the target parent. So there becomes this loyalty difference. And then I think one thing that's really important to talk about is, how does this take place, or how does this show up? How does it display among different age groups? And I think that's what judges have a difficulty with, and even most professionals, therapists, evaluators have a difficulty understanding. And
sure, because the spectrum of a child within divorce, whether could be anywhere from a toddler age to a teen young adult, and so each one of those age groups is basically going to be different, or it's going to act different. Right.
Now, you and I will talk about that. Many of the experts will talk about that. But what's so surprising is those who are not or keeping themselves up on this subject, including legal professionals, really, for the lack of better words, just don't have a clue. So they take just at face value the child's behavior. So a child that's under 5 or 6 who is rejecting a parent, they'll take it as, well, there's something bad or going on between that target parent and the child. But the truth is, at that age group, children is still what we call centric. They believe that everything in the world is because of them, for the lack of better words. And so if something is going on, somebody is treating them positively or negatively, or there's something about their interactions not right, they have to fix it. Okay? And so this speaks really true when you talk about abuse situations, which, by the way, as a side note, parental alienation is an abuse. It's a psychological, emotional abuse. And
absolutely,
we'll get back to that later. But so when a child is being brainwashed subtly, psychologically or emotionally, they're going to endear the brainwasher. If a child is being sexually abused or physically abused, they'll actually endear that abuser more, because they believe that they have to fix it. Okay. And also an abuser is actually not consistent in their attachment. So the child is always being threatened with a threat of losing the caretaker, losing the parent, simply through the abuse. So weirdly enough, you'll see children that are being physically and sexually abused, they'll actually attach to that abuser. They're trying to fix the relationship. They believe that something they're doing is at fault, and they're trying to please the abuser, okay? And so if you have an adult, a parent that's actually brainwashing the child, turning the child against the other parent, okay? Children don't do that naturally. They want to love and be loved by a parent, both parents. Right. So when they start rejecting the parent at a very young age, the judges, most of the judiciary, the onlookers, even other parents and activities will go, there must be something wrong with that parent, okay? So they'll kind of align, unknowingly align with the alienator. But what in fact is usually occurring is they're just endearing the abuser. And the abuser is teaching them how to reject the other parent, okay? Now, when you get to an older age group, if they don't have what we call, for the lack of better words, kind of a boomerang effect, where as they get older, they get it. They realize that most of the onslaught of assault is coming from one parent and not the other. And they realize, okay, you know, dad or mom is doing all this bashing, but the other dad or mom is not. They begin to then kind of align with the target parent because they get tired of it. They realize something's not right.
I've seen that. Mm-hmm. And as you well know, I teach martial arts. I've been teaching for a long time, so I've had a lot of kids that have come in here, and some kids that stayed with me 10, 15, 20 years, and some, went off and became professionals and so on and so forth. And we've had some kids that have come from parents, and you can tell they were alienating the father. Usually it's a father. And we had one particular, when this young girl grew up, she realized that the father wasn't what mom was saying, and all of a sudden no longer sees mom. And that happens, and I've seen that more and more. And you can tell right away that they realized that there was an age group, there was an age bracket there, probably between 18 to 20, that they realized what happened, and they disconnect themselves from that person that was being the alienator.
And unfortunately, it's very devastating for the child, because even as the alienator, it was an object, it was a person, a parent that the child loved, that
right.
child trusted, that the child had an alignment with. And when they get it, for the lack of better words, they realize what's going on. There's so many different emotions, and conflict then occurs, because now they realize, okay, everything I was being told wasn't true. This person was lying to me, but yet this person is my parent. And I still, they still want a relationship with that parent, but they struggle with trying to figure out how to do that. And that's a very good point. And as a side note, as you said, your role as an instructor in your school, the alignment that occurs with an alienator can occur. And a lot of that alignment is emotionally based, where the alienator really picks out what would be known as flying monkeys, based on emotion. Alienator more commonly, and we can get into that a little bit later, but it's common for alienators to kind of corral others into their sympathy victimhood. And as some writers, particularly Dr. Childress notes, the alienator oftentimes has their own past trauma. And basically what they're doing is bringing their own past trauma, and the child is being used to kind of relive that trauma in a way. And so then the target parent becomes the bad person, and the alienator teaches the child how to make the target parent the bad person. But, and what they do is they corral other people to kind of do their bidding for them. And sometimes you have these other professionals, whether it's in the school environment, different sports activities, they get pulled in because of the emotionally laden message by the alienator. They don't realize what's going on. They only get one side of the story, you know, so they kind of align themselves unknowingly. And part of that issue is really, it's just they have a lack of knowledge, not only about the issue, they have a lack of knowledge about really what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so it really takes some objectivity to ask yourself, why is this parent telling me this at this time? You know, so.
Absolutely. What are other views or some other, if a parent doesn't know and he kind of senses there's something wrong with my child,
Mm-hmm.
how can he have the red flags, as you can say, that are building up? Or how can the person that's being targeted go out and say, you know what, I'm going to try to fix this? What are his objective or goals?
Well, I think the first thing is identification. And the first, I think some of the major issues, red flags about identification, if you begin to see a change in the child's behavior in your presence, that's an indicator where the change doesn't match when the child or children are with you when you're on your own. And you begin to see a change in the child's behavior in the presence of both parents compared to when the child is with you on your own. Those are big indicators. Then you're going to see as well, you know, different language that the child's going to use to describe things. You know, you could be limit setting the child, and the child will, you know, could say, I never want to see my mommy ever again, see my daddy ever in my life again. You know, using words that are just totally not age appropriate. And those are, you know, clues as well. And then I think over the course of things, a child is going to tell you things. And I think that's what becomes one of the major difficulties with being a target parent, is that the child's going to divulge things that are being told, and there's going to be a temptation to bring it back to the other parent. I think legal professionals will say in a very tactful manner, bring it back to the other parent as a question, you know, hey, such and such, little Johnny said this, can you help me understand where this might be coming from? Or, you know, what's this all about? But on the other side of the coin, it's a very fine line to walk, because an alienator doing things like this, if they're very, if it's willful, you know, if you bring that back to the alienating parent, well, when the child returns home, the parent's going to view the child as betraying them, and then the child's going to take a lot of heat. So I think, going back to your question, though, there's going to be a variety of things that you're going to be initially seeing, and I think that oftentimes we kind of cast them off, you know, because kids can do a variety of stuff. They can say things off the hand, you know, offhand. It doesn't mean anything, and parents don't want to jump the gun and be overreactive. So I think one of the things that's reasonable, if there's ever any clue, just keep documenting. You got to document, you got to document, you got to document. And there are several reasons for that. There's going to be times when it's just not going to be appropriate to bring it back to the other parent for whatever reason. And documenting allows you to put it down on paper. It allows you to look at it objectively and take some of the emotion out of it, because there's going to be times, or more than there's going to be times, probably almost all times, the child is doing something that's alienating to our target parent. It's going to have a real emotional impact, discouragement, sadness. Yeah. And then other thing it does, it helps you keep track and see, is there a pattern developing here? Is there a pattern? There's a group of parents that they do it willfully. And this ties into their own issues, developmental issues. And there's a group of parents that may just inadvertently say and do stuff, and they, you know, don't realize that the impact on the child, particularly if it's close to post-divorce or in the midst of a divorce process, you know, where the emotions are heavily laden, and parents, you know, in their own pain, grief, defensiveness, just say all kinds of things.
Sure.
without knowing how it impacts a child. But going back to directly to your question, I think those few signs can be indicators. I think the other thing you clued off, just intuitively, if something doesn't seem right, it's because probably something isn't right. And right then you need to start documenting. Now, I guess I hesitate to say this only because it's going to involve the judiciary and, getting legal aid. And you really have to screen who you're hiring carefully in terms of attorneys, family law attorneys that are aware of these behaviors. They know what this means. They know what type of possible personalities carry out these type of behaviors, and they know how to address them with these type of personalities. So you have to find attorneys that know about this subject and know about the types of people that become alienators. And the other thing, it unfortunately, as we touched upon earlier, I would say on a whole, it's a minority of judges that really know about this. And if we, even if you look at different county orders, standing orders of different counties, they may refer and tell parents, you cannot do, and then refer to the most overt, you can't move the child out of the county. You can't, conceal the whereabouts of the child. But they don't really address the other subtle pattern of behaviors, that parents can do as a continuing alienated process. You may look at some counties have the Children's Bill of Rights, and it may address some of it, but doesn't address, the complete list of things that can be said or can be done.
Absolutely.
And so I think the judiciary on a whole and a majority just look at the most overt, severe behaviors. If a mom or a dad just suddenly kidnaps a child out of state, or they suddenly move against the geographic restrictions of the orders, unfortunately, that is not even oftentimes considered as a serious issue, So it's saying, I think in a lot of the text, what will be read is, it's important to address it in the judiciary as soon as possible, and also work on getting a custody evaluation with a psychologist, psychiatrist that's trained to do these type of alienation assessments and do a child custody eval. But again, you have to walk carefully even with that, because not all evaluators are aware of the different developmental manifestation or signs that occur.
And it seems that parent alienation has so much of a broadened spectrum that it's kind of hard to get at. But I guess the most obvious would be like if a son or a daughter is held back from in sports where the father goes at, and I've had instances where you have one parent come over here and says, I do not want my ex coming here and picking up my son. Well, if it's her Friday and it's a decree, they can pick up the child here. I'm not going to go at this. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of cases, what I think should be, or what I think it seems to be alienation, where all of a sudden the parents get divorced and the father was the one that brought the son or daughter to classes, and all of a sudden they're with mom and she says, well, guess what? Now you're going to go do volleyball or dance or what have you. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to remove them from whatever dad had them in. And sometimes the father doesn't even know that the child hasn't come here for a month.
Oh, that's a good point. And that also relates to the parenting plan, and really the importance of having everything in writing as specific as possible. So that helps the other professionals, whether they're coaches, instructors in your position, school officials, anybody. It helps to protect you and helps you understand what the orders were and what the guide is and who can pick up the child and who can't on certain days. But you're exactly right. One parent scheduling an activity during the time of the other parent, when there's nothing in writing or no formal written agreement to do that, is probably one of the more commonplace things that occurs, and that even includes doctor's appointments, where one parent will just schedule a doctor's appointment on the other parent's time. So one of the things I think through that, what you see is just an issue of what we'd call disregard, kind of a disregard by one parent toward the other parent in regards to parenting time, or whether at activities or separate parenting time. And then I think another term that you see that goes along with this whole thing is parental entitlement. The entitlement of one parent thinking that they just have the right to do whatever they want to do. And it really is related to disregard, because oftentimes this type of parent is their entitlement to disregard the other parent. And they forget about that, the message that they're giving to the child, and that the child picks up. The child picks up a sense of disregard toward the other parent. And so there's this imbalance of parental importance where one parent is less important to the other. In reality, both parents are very important, utmost. And so you're going to see this process occur whenever there's one parent really has a disregard. It's not for the rights of the parent. It's a disregard for the role of both parents in the child's life. It's a disregard for the importance of parents in the children's life, because they're so focused on their role compared to the other parent. And the child learns this. And when you start as a process trying to eliminate, interfere with the one parent's role, if the child doesn't come to some realization of what's going on, they adapt this attitude, and they begin to have the same type of entitlement and contempt for the targeted parent versus what we would call the favored parent. And it really robs the child of their identity psychologically and emotionally, because it goes without saying, we're made up of both of our parents, obviously genetically, and in relationship wise, we internalize all relationships. That's why even though when someone's not always around, we're still attached. That's why when somebody we care about dies or is gone, we grieve, because we internalize. So when that relationship early on is stolen, so to speak, because of the action of one parent, the child doesn't internalize that other parent identity. And there's this big, without going into too much psychobabble, there's a big gap left in the child's psyche. And you begin to see that in different ways, whether it's reflected in their own self-esteem, their own ongoing feeling or mood states, and that reflects their overall behavioral choices throughout life.
Absolutely. When you see, here's the final question, doctor. When you have a parent that realizes that this is going on, and he can say, you know what, I'm 100% sure this is what's going on now. What are the steps he should take or she should take to start eliminating them or start seeing?
That's a really good question, and it relates to one, addressing the issues with the other parent, because I think it's important to find out, and you can address them in such a way that you can really identify if the other parent is doing this intentionally or inadvertently. But it's important to address it with the other parent in a non-blaming way. The other thing is learning, reading, watching any educational video you can about this subject, gathering information. So because the parent, the target parent, is basically going to have to take a rehabilitative approach with the child and with their relationship with the child, because if they're identifying that this is going on and they're positive this is going on, their role is going to be a relationship building, a rehabilitative role with the child, because they have to realize that the child is being abused psychologically and emotionally. And so no matter how much rejection, no matter how much sadness they endure because of the rejection, no matter how much they may not agree with what the other parent's doing and encounter in the child's behavior, it's important to remember that their role is a relationship building and rehabilitation for the child and their relationship with the child. Then legally, it's always advised that they need to seek and do a child custody evaluation to have an outside observer evaluate the whole picture as best as possible. And also basically work with the other parent or the courts or a mediator or a parent facilitator or coordinator, or get one that is knowledgeable about parental alienation, so that you can have outside eyes taking a look at the overall situation to be able to evaluate the other parent, evaluate the target parent, evaluate the child. And that process is it's not without error, because it depends on the locality. You know, if you see this in a rural setting, it depends on the availability and the skill of the evaluators at hand. I think it's a little bit better because now we're in the age of telemedicine, so to speak. We're all using Zoom or one type of video chat or another. So you can actually have professionals in other cities do interviews, do evaluations, do sessions, and a lot of therapists currently do that. But I think the important part is identification, then getting that second set of eyes, professional eyes, to take a look at the situation. I think the parent, the target parent, oftentimes needs their own support, and not only social support with family and friends, but also with their own therapist to help focus on their own behaviors toward the child to continue to strengthen that relationship. What I see oftentimes, and I'll get back to the answer of your question, is there's so much, I would say, emotional distress that occurs when you see this occurring with your own child. They keep focusing on the other parent, on the other parent. And oftentimes it's hard, and they forget to focus on, okay, what do I need to do next in order to buffer this, in order to kind of rehab this behavior, in order to address with the child what parents are supposed to be doing. And in terms of rehab, with the parent-child relationship, there are several different aspects of that, because there are several different scenarios that children are going to bring up. And I think Dr. Baker brought up in one of her lectures a very good point. Oftentimes, the issue of being loved, the issue of always being there, access, and the issue of always being safe are the three main things that children are going to bring up when it comes to a conflict between the parents, or a statement by an alienating parent about the other. And parents, this is just one scenario. Parents have to be very careful not to get into or put the child into the middle of any type of debate, right. i.e. one parent could say, well, your dad or your mom is spending all this money on her boyfriend or girlfriend and not really spending on your education. How does a parent respond to that? There's a temptation to pull out the bills and say, no, look at all the money I've been spending on your education. But what the theme of that is love, access, and safety. And so responding to that with phrases such as, well, I'm sorry you heard about that, or I'm sorry you're being told that, but I love you very much, and let's redirect the conversation someplace else, not get into a back and forth with the child in the middle. I think the point being is, aside from getting a second set of eyes, aside from taking going in a legal direction, the target parent has to also consider that the child is dealing with a type of abuse, and the parent has to really focus on their own dealings with the child and how to manage different scenarios.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think those are the main categories of addressing it after identification.
Absolutely. And last question, have you talked to some of the courts about this, some of the judges about this, and try to educate them?
Not to this point. Talking to legislatures about this issue is a thing that I'm involved in currently. But that's a very good point. And I think the judges need more education from the scientists involved and the people that deal with this and know about this, because there's, a lack of education. And I think the education that does occur is a one-sided education and limited at best. But more and more judges are learning about this issue as well.
Sure.
I would love to.
That'd be great. Maybe we can look at those avenues, see which way we can see which way the magistrates can look at this for them to say, you know what, I've been doing this wrong, and let's look at it, because
I think it would be nice. I'm sorry for interrupting you. I apologize. But before I forget, it would be nice, maybe an ideal situation, if each county of district judges and associate judges met with just a general advisor, a general mental health or child development or adult child development advisor that just, once a month gave them an hour lecture on different issues related to child development, children after divorce, issues of parental alienation. Because I think often what they rely on is just case specific. They rely on the evaluator, its evaluation, giving them recommendations, who should do what with the child. And, in their off time, I think they just need more general education because whenever, majority of cases, there is no child evaluator. There is no professional in cases. Many, many more cases are going pro se, and most cases, everyone has an attorney representing them. So without any professional guidance, judges at times, unfortunately, just make arbitrary decisions. And to their credit, the dockets are full, they're overloaded. You have a ton of family cases. They're trying to solve the best they can everybody's problems. But I think the thing they forget and they get immersed in, which is part of the judicial process, is the adversarial position, which includes anybody walking into the courtroom. It's one side against the other. And in a family case, it's parent against parent. And that's the form it takes. And they are not always mindful of, okay, this is not about what one parent wants or what's being displayed. What's the best outcome for this child in this situation?
Absolutely. What's the best outcome? And I've seen parents that are fighting for their children, and I've seen some parents that don't. Mm-hmm. I've seen all the different views, all the different spectrums that come in the last couple of years, and you just kind of, what's important is a child. Mm-hmm. And how are we going to save that child from doing this, and how are we going to, how can I say, wake that child up, let them see the light if you want to see, you know what I'm saying? So kind of that's the key point here.
I think as part of this, it will be important to mention the types of personalities that get involved as alienators. Excuse me, because I don't think there's enough knowledge, particularly in the judiciary, about the types of personalities that become alienators, willful alienators. And this is spoken about by the other experts, and my information is basically taken from all the other experts. Although I will say, to my own credit, without boasting, I've been a child and adolescent and adult psychiatrist and dealt with child and adult development and normal development and psychopathology for over 20-something years. So in my own field, I'm considered as an expert, but as a keynote, much of this work has really been done with the psychological field rather than the psychiatric field. And I'm glad that probably within the last 5 to 10 years, more of our field is becoming engulfed and knowledgeable in considering this as an important thing. But from that, going to that this is becoming and is considered a diagnostic entity, that it will be hopefully included, and there's many advocates to include it in what's called the diagnostic and statistical manuals, specifically parental alienation, because it's being considered as a form of abuse, mainly psychological, emotional manipulation and abuse. And there's particular personalities that do this. And it's similar to cult leaderships, basically assimilating somebody into a cult. It's the same tactics, the same maneuvers, which are basically emotionally manipulation of the child. And, you know, look at the cult leaders, look at the age group that cult leaders are able to assimilate into their cults. They're already adults. Imagine the ease of assimilating a child and the damage that can be done into a young child is phenomenal and shouldn't be discarded. But the type of personalities essentially are the same. And you're dealing with a group of personalities in which there's so much self-investment, I would have to say false self-investment, to the sacrifice of anybody else. And those labels are usually given like narcissistic personalities, borderline personalities, antisocial personalities, and even histrionic personalities. But the main, they're all on one spectrum, but a different severity. And basically you can even extend it into what's called the sociopathic personality. So basically the child becomes or is just an object for their own gain, whether it's for their own gain psychologically, to fulfill some emptiness. Sometimes it's their own gain emotionally for an attachment, or even monetarily, you know, and unfortunately we see that aspect all the time that's reinforced. But that type of personality, it's important to identify as much as possible, because that type of personality can be specifically damaging to the child's psychological well-being. The child will basically be assimilated as them. There's no separation from their needs and wants. The child doesn't become a separate individual, doesn't become an independent entity. The child becomes part of them. I don't remember if you remember the Star Trek movie or the episode where they had the alien, the Borg, and you could become assimilated, you know, as one of the Borg. The child essentially becomes that. And that's why it's so psychologically damaging for the child. The child essentially loses their identity. They just become one with the parent. Now, one, it's not good for several reasons, because as the parent believes and is entitled to believe at the disregard of anybody else and even the child, that they are the only ones that is the parent, and they can only be the best parent. They're the ones that can also abuse the child, because the child is just a thing. And that's why it's really important that the courts, the attorneys, become more educated on this issue, including GALs and attorney ad litems. You know, every court has a referral list, what they call the wheel list, and they refer cases, family cases, to these professionals. And all too often, unfortunately, not a lot have knowledge of this psychological makeup, and it's important that they do, but more and more are. So it would be a disservice to talk about parental alienation and not talk about the issue of narcissistic, borderline, histrionic, or antisocial personalities raising a child. And because it's a very important psychological makeup that has to be identified. In terms of the spectrum, you can have people that are very obvious in the way they function, you know, and you can have people that are very not obvious. They can be very covert, and they can present themselves in such a way that they fool the courts. And this would be, you know, the typical probably scenario you may or may not have heard about, you know, where you really have an abusive parent, and somehow they just keep getting enabled by the court, and they keep getting away with whatever they get away with, you know, and it's astounding how this occurs. I'm not saying all of it is like this, but it's a good high likelihood that that person is just able to create a display, a picture in such a way that it's so believable because usually this type of personality is very skilled at manipulating, very skilled at of making up stories and displaying themselves so it's not obvious. And they're very skilled at pulling people in emotionally to side with them, because emotion is contagious. Logic is not, unfortunately. So it's going back to your question, what should we do? One, we have to read and read and read and read. If we believe that we're in a divorce or separation situation, that it seems like just this conflict and argumentation all the time, I think, or with the other parent, that's a clue. That it doesn't seem like an argument ever resolves. It just goes round and round and round. You start seeing that they go from loving to suddenly bashing, just out of the blue. One parent does that to the other. That's a clue. Because usually when you start seeing certain behaviors from certain parents, reading and watching videos, educational videos, you can start matching up behaviors with what type of behaviors occur with what label. And then that helps you kind of narrow down and hone into that, oh, I better get ready because there's children involved. And then you start looking, okay, at the different subtle behaviors we may or may not see with children. And as soon as that starts happening, I think then you start finding out what therapists are in your area available to you that are knowledgeable about high conflict issues. You start reading and learning how to manage high conflict issues, because, the therapists aren't going to be home with you 24 hours a day. The parent's going to have to learn how to manage this, finding out what attorneys have knowledge about this issue and high conflict and how to manage it. Unfortunately, building your case, and building your case to protect the child and protect yourself.
Here's one that gets me. I've seen this. I've seen family members, like say brother-in-laws, mother-in-laws, that are the actual ones that are actually being the alienators towards a parent. Understand?
Yeah, they get themselves all wrapped up into this whole situation, and I believe it just stems from, well, one, the alienator's family. I think depending on the family, and I think there's cultural factors. You'll have relatives that say, no matter what, I'm going to stand by my sister or my sister-in-law, no matter what, right or wrong. But I think the other factor is the way it's displayed. And I think the third factor is the way it's baited. And I say the way it's baited because usually when the bait involves a feeling of having to be sympathetic, and the bait involves a feeling like they need your help, that's a pretty good red flag that the person telling the story is acting as if a victim. Now, I'm not saying that we all don't at one time display ourselves as victims, but at some point in the process, instead of having a sense of not taking responsibility for anything, most of us come to a point of going, okay, my part of this is X, Y, and Z. I don't own this, but we begin to change X, Y, and Z. We begin to realize, okay, we need to start figuring out a different way of dealing with this stuff.
Absolutely.
Those that are alienators essentially don't. And so they display themselves as a victim constantly. That's their professional role. And they use that to pull people in, not only family members, but outside family.
Outside members. I see this a lot. I see the kids themselves talking down or bashing the father or mother that's being alienated.
They're bashing the father that's being, or the mom. Yeah, because they've already taken that alliance, and that would be a later stage. And that is a later stage of the alienation. They'll go with that parent, but they're still going to be disrespecting and bashing that parent. And the target parent, you cannot be passive with that. You have to address the behavior of the child and teach the child. This is just one specific example, but you teach the child, this is not how a son or a daughter treats your mom or your dad. this is not okay. But that would be a later stage of alienation. In the parent, it's a difficult challenge for the parent. The parent has to have good rules, good structure, be empathic, understand the difficulty the child or the teenager is dealing with in the other home,
Sure.
be well structured, and never give up.
Absolutely. That's a key. Never give up.
Never give up.
Doctor, I want to thank you for teaching us, because you actually taught me a lot today. And hopefully those that are out there and are listening to this, it can help them in some form or another. And we'll do it again. We'll talk about some other issues later up in the coming months, and because I think this is a topic that has to be brought out to the public.
It
The
does.
public has to, because it affects many.
It does. I would like to make a note before we leave, because it's a constant learning process for me.
Sure.
And so I'm always viewing videos on YouTube related to the subject as much as possible. I'm reading some of the, well, not some, a lot of research material. So it's hard to, at times, put this all together in a condensed version. But one of the writers I just discovered was a gentleman by the name of Bill Eddy, E-D-D-Y. And he's a therapist who also is an attorney that has published a couple of books about how to handle or manage yourself around high conflict people in terms of responding in order to turn the conflict communication into some type of problem solving communication. And so I've been reading about this, and I would recommend his writings. I don't have any vested interest, partnerships, corporations, any type of monetary investment in this. But along with reading anybody else, I think that his methods might also have good results. Bill Eddy. Yeah. Thank you. It's been an honor. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. And we'll do it again. We'll continue the fight in many different ways out there, because there's way too many people being affected. And there's a lot of kids that grow up. And,
a lot of kids.
That grow up missing and experiencing the other parent, whether it's a father, whether it's a mother. And parent alienation happens on both sides, moms and dads.
Yes.
So,
yeah, it does. Thank you.
So again, once more, thank you.
Absolutely. You have a
Until
great
next time.
All right. Thank you. See you later.
Peace.
Bye now.
The following political paid advertisements do not reflect the political opinions of the program or its associates. Any political campaign or candidate who wishes to purchase advertising can do so. Advertising is open to all on behalf of Gloves Off.